Welcome to another podcast on Shoulder of Giants. Please like and subscribe. Today, we're diving deep into Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance.
Ah, classic.
Definitely. It's from his collections back in the 1840s, but you still see it everywhere, right? Like in those Dover thrift editions.
Absolutely. It's amazing how relevant it still feels.
And that's kind of the point, isn't it? Why does this piece, written nearly 2 centuries ago, still offer such sharp insights for, life today?
Exactly. And that's our goal for this deep dive, to sort of get to the heart of it. We want to pull out the key ideas and really explore how they might give you, the listener, a fresh perspective on things you're dealing with right now.
Okay.
Because really, at its core, self-reliance is this powerful call to, well, trust your own judgment, to be the authority in your own life.
Okay, let's unpack this then. One of the big foundational ideas, I think, is the importance of individuality, not just fitting in.
Right.
Emerson's famous line, "Envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide." What's the core insight there for us, you think?
Well, it's pretty direct, isn't it? Emerson's basically saying that when we envy someone else, we're like completely missing our own unique value. We're blind to ourselves.
Ignorance of self.
Yeah. And the imitation part,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be someone else.
Yeah.
You're essentially killing off your own potential, what makes you you. It's not just about feeling bad. It's like a fundamental misstep that stops you growing.
He also hits hard against society, doesn't he? Calling it a conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. That sounds pretty strong.
It is strong language. He really believed that society, kind of by its nature, pushes for sameness, for conformity, to keep things orderly. But the downside is that it can squash individual expression, unique talents. He used that metaphor, doesn't he? Society is a joint stock company.
Right, where everyone gives up a bit of liberty.
For security, yeah. You trade a piece of your authentic self for fitting in, basically.
And this is where it gets really interesting for today, I think. Because those pressures to conform, they feel maybe even stronger now. With social media, everyone comparing lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Consumer culture telling you what to want, those sort of predefined career ladders. Are we still making that trade? Giving up bits of ourselves for acceptance without even noticing?
That's a fantastic point. The digital age just amplifies it all, doesn't it? Social media often rewards trend following, and seeing all these curated lives makes it hard not to compare.
Yeah.
Consumerism is constantly nudging us.
Yeah.
And yeah, career paths can feel very narrow sometimes. It really makes you stop and think, are there places where you might be holding back an idea, an interest, just to fit in?
It really does. And then Emerson drops that line, "Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist." What does he really mean by nonconformist? It's not just about being difficult, is it?
No, not at all. For Emerson, it's not about rebellion for its own sake. It's about having the courage to think for yourself, to act on your own convictions, your own principles, even if they go against the popular view.
So like thoughtful independence.
Exactly. Thoughtful independence. Today, maybe it's just questioning things more, resisting the urge to jump on every bandwagon, or, choosing a path that genuinely excites you, even if others raise their eyebrows. It's not automatic opposition.
And what about that fear? The fear of being misunderstood. That stops a lot of people, I think.
He tackles that directly. He points out that, think about history's great minds, Pythagoras, Socrates, Jesus. The people he mentions, they were often misunderstood in their own time.
Right.
His point is, being misunderstood isn't necessarily failure. It could actually be a sign that you're onto something genuinely new, something that challenges how people think.
Okay, so another huge takeaway is trusting that inner voice, our intuition. Emerson says we should live wholly from within. How do we even begin to do that with all the noise today?
Well, he really champions relying on our internal compass. He urges us to give priority to our own instincts, our own insights, even when they clash with, tradition or what everyone else is saying. There's that story about him responding to someone advising him about church doctrines, right? He asks, "What have I to do with the sacredness of traditions if I live wholly from within?" He was committed to his own nature.
Wow. That takes guts.
It really does. For him, the integrity of your own mind, that was the most sacred thing.
So for us today, maybe it means consciously making space for quiet, for reflection.
Yes, exactly. And maybe honing our critical thinking, learning to actually listen to and value those gut feelings we often just brush aside in our hyper-rational, information-heavy world.
Which ties into another, maybe his most famous line, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." What's the key insight there? We shouldn't be consistent.
Well, not foolishly consistent. He's warning against sticking to old opinions just for the sake of appearing consistent. He valued intellectual flexibility, being free to change your mind when you learn something new, when your understanding evolves.
Right.
A truly thoughtful person, in his view, shouldn't be scared to say, actually, I see this differently now, even if it contradicts something they said before.
It makes you think, doesn't it? How often we might just dig in our heels on something, even if we have doubts, just because we don't want to look like we're flip-flopping.
Exactly. That fear of looking inconsistent can seriously block genuine learning and growth. Emerson's pushing us to value truth and understanding over just, looking unwavering.
Okay, so let's talk about self-reliance in action. He says, a true man belongs to no other time or place, but is the center of things. What's the practical takeaway there for someone listening?
I think it speaks to your own agency, your power to act. Emerson is suggesting you shouldn't feel totally dependent on external stuff, circumstances, other people's opinions, to define who you are or where you're going. Instead, it's about cultivating that internal sense of control, realizing you have the capacity to influence your life and your corner of the world, starting right here, right now.
So, taking ownership, not waiting for permission or validation from outside.
Precisely. And he has that other really strong line, doesn't he? I do not wish to please him. I wish that he should wish to please me.
Yeah, that one can sound a bit arrogant.
It can, taken out of context. But I think it's less about arrogance and more about deep self-respect, not needing constant external approval to fuel your actions, operating from your own core convictions.
Okay. Now, the essay also brings in this idea of the oversoul. That sounds a little mystical. How does that fit with self-reliance?
Yeah, it can sound abstract. You're right.
Yeah.
You could think of the oversoul as Emerson's term for a kind of universal intelligence, a shared spirit or consciousness that we all tap into.
Okay.
He suggests our deepest insights, moments of real truth or understanding of justice, they don't just come from our isolated little minds. They come from being open to this bigger source of wisdom.
So it's like trusting those really deep intuitions, the ones that feel like they come from somewhere beyond just your own thinking.
Exactly. It connects to those aha moments, or times you just know something deeply, perhaps without being able to fully explain why. For Emerson, being truly self-reliant includes being open, being receptive to this deeper, maybe universal wisdom.
Emerson was also pretty critical of just blindly accepting old ideas, traditions, that sort of thing, wasn't it?
Oh, deeply skeptical. He called it the worship of the past. He really questioned why we automatically assume old ways or old doctrines are better than our own present understanding and direct experience.
Right.
He uses that great analogy, the acorn and the oak. Why value the acorn, the past, more than the potential of the living oak, the present? He wants us to experience truth directly.
Not just filtered through historical figures or institutions.
Precisely. He even says, we don't need David or Jeremiah or Paul to hear God for us. It's a direct challenge to relying only on secondhand wisdom.
Which feels incredibly relevant today with the flood of information and expert opinions everywhere.
Absolutely. Emerson is constantly reminding us, think for yourself. Engage critically. Form your own understanding. Don't just passively accept authority.
And then there's the focus on the present moment. Life only avails, not the having lived. What's the message there for us caught up in our busy schedules?
He's really underscoring the vital importance of now, the ongoing process of becoming, of growing. He noticed that people often resist this idea that the soul becomes, because it feels like it devalues the past, what's already been done. But in our world, which is so often focused on either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, it's a powerful call to just be present, to engage fully with the vitality of this moment right now.
He also talks about genuine connection, affection, sincerity. How does that square with being self-reliant? It sounds almost opposite.
It's an interesting balance, isn't it? Emerson actually believed our intellectual power, our creative abilities, they increase through genuine affection and sincere connection. He saw transformative power in honest conversation, how self-doubt can just vanish for a moment. But, and this is the self-reliant part he stressed, maintaining your own truthfulness within those connections, even if it's awkward, even if it challenges things or makes someone uncomfortable. Remember his line, I cannot sell my liberty and my power to save their sensibility.
So true connection doesn't mean compromising your core self, your authenticity.
Exactly. For Emerson, real connection needs that foundation of sincerity, mutual respect for each person's individual truth.
It's also interesting how he critiques travel. The superstition of traveling, he calls it, especially now when experiences are so highly valued.
Yeah, that feels very modern, doesn't it? He saw a lot of travel back then, maybe like some gap years or constant moving around today,
Uh-huh.
as a potential distraction, a substitute for the harder work of inner development. He argued that the wise man stays at home. Not literally, perhaps, but in the sense that true wisdom is internal. You carry it with you. An external trip won't magically give you what's missing inside.
It definitely makes you think about seeking fulfillment mainly through external things. Trips, possessions, rather than cultivating inner resources.
Precisely.
And what about his views on progress? He seemed, well, skeptical that society was automatically getting better in terms of individual character.
He did question that assumption. He questioned whether all our technological advances, our societal changes, actually led to stronger, more virtuous individuals.
He had that comparison, didn't he? The well-clad, reading, writing, thinking American versus the naked New Zealander.
Right. Suggesting that maybe in gaining civilization's comforts, we lose something else, some kind of aboriginal strength, some natural instinct or resilience. It's a provocative thought. What might we have traded away for modern life?
A challenging thought, for sure. And finally, he lands on this powerful idea about where peace truly comes from.
Yes, it's incredibly clear. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles.
Wow.
He just cuts through all the external seeking. True, lasting peace for Emerson isn't about circumstances changing. It's an inside job. It comes from your own integrity, living by your core values.
So wrapping up this deep dive into self-reliance, we've really touched on some huge themes. Individuality, nonconformity.
Trusting that inner voice, your intuition.
Avoiding that foolish consistency trap.
What real self-reliance looks like in action, day to day.
That idea of tapping into a deeper wisdom, the oversoul.
The need to think for ourselves, not just rely on the past.
Living in the present, the power of sincerity.
Questioning travel as a cure-all. Questioning progress.
And ultimately, finding peace within. Through your own principles.
These are really enduring ideas, aren't they? They offer such valuable ways to think about navigating, well, the sheer complexity of modern life. Emerson's essay is still this potent invitation to embrace your own unique path, to trust yourself.
Absolutely. And maybe on that note, here's something for you, the listener, to consider. Think about one area in your life right now. Is there a place where you feel you're looking too much for external approval or feeling pressured to conform? Just ask yourself, what would it look like? What might it feel like to approach that specific situation with a bit more self-reliance, trusting your own judgment more, living a bit more authentically from within, like Emerson challenges us to?
It's definitely a question worth sitting with.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance.
It's a great conversation. Really makes you think.
Join us next time on the deep dive for another exploration of fascinating ideas.
That's all for today's video. If you think this topic helped you or found it interesting, feel free to investigate further and read the book. Hopefully, you can take something you learned and apply it to your own life. If so, share it in a comment below. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.